Hi everybody, I hope you got a laugh out of the video yesterday. For those of you who watched it, I hope nothing like that happens today while I'm reading. We shall see. We are in the middle of part 4, and I'm going to read a section called When I Tell My Family. When I tell my family I want to be a writer, they smile and say, "We see you in the backyard with your writing." They say, "We hear you making up all those stories." And "We used to write poems." And "It's a good hobby. We see how quiet it keeps you." "But maybe you should be a teacher, a lawyer, do hair." "I'll think about it," I say. And maybe all of us know this is just another one of my stories. Daddy Gunner. Saturday morning, and Daddy Gunner's voice is on the other end of the phone. We all grab for it. "Let me speak to him. My turn. No, mine." Until Mama makes us stand in line. He coughs hard, takes deep breaths when he speaks. It's almost low as a whisper. "How are my New York grandbabies?" he wants to know. "We're good," I say, holding tight to the phone, but my sister is already grabbing for it. Hope and even Roman, all of us hungry for the sound of his faraway voice. "Y'all know how much I love you? Infinity and back again," I say, the way I've said it 1,000,000 times. "And then," Daddy says to me, "go on and add a little bit more to that." This is getting on my nerves. Hold on, guys. I got to move my hair. Excuse me for that. Hope on stage. Until the curtain comes up and he's standing there, 10 years old and alone in the center of the Public School 106 stage, no one knew my big brother could sing. He is dressed as a shepherd, his voice soft and low, more sure than any sound I've ever heard come out of him. My quiet big brother, who only speaks when asked, has little to say to any of us except when he's talking about science or comic books, now has a voice that is circling the air, landing clear and sweet around us. "Hope can sing," my sister says in wonder as my mother and the rest of the audience start to clap. Maybe, I am thinking, there is something hidden like this in all of us, a small gift from the universe waiting to be discovered. My big brother raises his arms, calling his donkey home. He is smiling as he sings, the music getting louder behind him. And in the darkened auditorium, the light is only on Hope. And it's hard to believe he has such a magic singing voice, and even harder to believe his donkey is going to come running. Daddy this time. Greenville is different this summer. Roman is well and out back, swinging hard. Somewhere between last summer and now, our daddy cemented the swing set down. Roman doesn't know the shaky days. Just this moment, his dark blue kids pointing toward the sky, his laughter and screams like wind through the screen door. Now my grandmother shushes him. Daddy's resting in the bedroom, the covers pulled up to his chin, his thin body so much smaller than I remember it. "Just a little tired," Daddy says to me when I tiptoe in with chicken soup, sit on the edge of the bed, and try to get him to take small sips. He struggles into sitting, lets me feed him small mouthfuls, but only a few are enough. Too tired to eat any more. Then he closes his eyes. Outside, Roman laughs again, and the swing set whines with the weight of him. Maybe Hope is there pushing him into the air, or maybe it's Dell. The three of them would rather be outside. "His room smells," my sister says, but I don't smell anything except the lotion I rub into my grandfather's hands. When the others aren't around, he whispers, "You're my favorite," smiles and winks at me. "You're going to be fine, you know that?" Then he coughs hard and closes his eyes, his breath struggling to get into and out of his body. Most days I am in here with my grandfather, holding his hand while he sleeps, fluffing pillows and telling him stories about my friends back home. When he asks, I speak to him in Spanish, the language that rolls off my tongue like I was born knowing it. Sometimes my grandfather says, "Sing me something pretty." And then I sing to him. I'm not just left of the key or right of the tune. He says I sing beautifully. He says I am perfect. What everybody knows now. Even though the laws have changed, my grandmother still takes us to the back of the bus when we go downtown in the rain. It's easier, my grandmother says, than having white folks look at me like I'm dirt. But we aren't dirt. We are people, paying the same fare as other people. When I say this to my grandmother, she nods, says, easier to stay where you belong. I look around and see the ones who walk straight to the back, see the ones who take a seat up front, daring anyone to make them move, and know this is who I want to be, not scared like that, brave like that. Still, my grandmother takes my hand downtown, pulls me right past the restaurants that have to let us sit wherever we want now. No need in making trouble, she says. You all go back to New York City, but I have to live here. We walk straight past Woolworth's without even looking in the windows because the one time my grandmother went inside, they made her wait and wait. Acted like I wasn't even there. It's hard not to see the moment. My grandmother in her Sunday clothes, a hat with a flower pinned to it neatly on her head, her patent leather purse perfectly clasped between her gloved hands, waiting quietly long past her turn. End of summer. Too fast the summer leaves us again. We kiss our grandparents goodbye, and my Uncle Robert is there waiting to take us home again. When we hug our grandfather, his body is all bones and skin. But he is up now, sitting at the window, a blanket covering his thin shoulders. Soon I'll get back to that garden, he says, but most days all I want to do is lay down and rest. We wave again from the taxi that pulls out slow down the drive, watch our grandmother still waving, grow small behind us, and our grandfather in the window fade from sight. Far Rockaway. Robert only stays long enough for my mother to thank him for buying our tickets for getting us home. He does a fancy turn on his heel, aims 2 pointer fingers at us, and says, I'll catch up with all of you later. We tell him that he has to come back soon, remind him of all the stuff he's promised us. Trips to Coney Island and the amusement park, a Chrissy doll with hair that grows, a Tonka toy, Gulliver's Travels, candy. He says he won't forget. Asks us if he's a man of his word, and everyone except my mother nods. Hard not to miss my mother's eyebrows, giving her baby brother a look, pressing her lips together. Once in the middle of the night, 2 policemen knocked on our door asking for Robert Leon Irby, but my uncle wasn't there. So my mother takes a breath and says, stay safe, says, don't get into trouble out there, Robert. He gives her a hug and promises he won't, and then he is gone. Fresh air. When I get back to Brooklyn, Maria isn't there. She's gone upstate, staying with a family, her mother tells me, that has a pool. Then her mother puts a plate of food in front of me, tells me how much she knows I love her rice and chicken. When Maria returns, she is tanned and wearing a new short set. Everything about her seems different. I stayed with white people, she tells me, rich white people. The air upstate is different. It doesn't smell like anything. She hands me a piece of bubble gum with bubble yum in bright letters. This is what they chew up there. All the rest of the summer, Maria and I buy only bubble yum, blow huge bubbles while I make her tell me story after story about the white family she visited. They kept saying I was poor and trying to give me stuff, Maria says. I had to keep telling them it's not poor where we live. Next summer, I say, you should just come down south. It's different there. And Maria promises she will. On the sidewalk, we draw hopscotch games that we play using chipped pieces of slate chalk. Maria and Jack, best friends forever. We chalk. Maria and Jackie, best friends forever, wherever there is a smooth stone. Write it so many times that it's hard to walk on our side of the street without looking down and seeing us there. Public School 106 Haiku. Jacqueline Woodson. I'm finally in 4th grade. It's raining outside. She wrote a haiku, it sounds like, when she was in 4th grade. Learning from Langston. Okay, this is the part that I told you at the beginning was important. We're going to see some influences. He's a very famous poet. His name was Langston Hughes. Okay, so this is what she's going to say. There's some poems here about Langston Hughes. I loved my friend. He went away from me. There's nothing more to say. The poem ends soft as it began. I loved my friend, by Langston Hughes. I love my friend, and still do. When we play games, we laugh. I hope she never goes away from me, because I love my friend, by Jackie Woodson. The Selfish Giant. In the story of the Selfish Giant, a little boy hugs a giant who has never been hugged before. The giant falls in love with the boy, but then one day the boy disappears. When he returns, he has scars on his hands and his feet, just like Jesus. The giant dies and goes to paradise. The first time my teacher reads the story to the class, I cry all afternoon and am still crying when my mother gets home from work that evening. She doesn't understand why I want to hear such a sad story again and again, but takes me to the library around the corner when I beg and helps me find the book to borrow, The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde. I read the story again and again. Like the giant, I too fall in love with the Jesus boy. There's something so sweet about him. I want to be his friend. Then one day my teacher asks me to come up front to read aloud. But I don't need to bring the book with me. The story of the selfish giant is in my head now, living there, remembered. Every afternoon as they were coming home from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. I tell the class the whole story, flowing out of me right up to the end when the boy says, "These are the wounds of love. You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise." "How did you do that?" my classmates asked. "How did you memorize all those words?" But I just shrugged, not knowing what to say. How can I explain to anyone that stories are like air to me? I breathe them in and let them out over and over again. "Brilliant," my teacher says, smiling. "Jackie, that was absolutely beautiful." And I know now, words are my brilliance. Words are my brilliance. The butterfly poems. So this is a turning point, I feel like, for Jackie, because up until this point, she's been jealous because she knows that her sister is smart, her brother can sing, and now she's figured out what her brilliance is. The butterfly poems. No one believes me when I tell them I am writing a book about butterflies, even though they see me with the Childcraft Encyclopedia heavy on my lap, opened to the pages where the monarch, painted lady, giant swallowtail, and queen butterflies live, even one called a buckeye. When I write the first words, "Wings of a butterfly whisper," no one believes a whole book could ever come from something as simple as butterflies that don't even, my brother says, live that long. But on paper, things can live forever. On paper, a butterfly never dies. My pages are sticking together. 6 minutes. The sisters in the Kingdom Hall get 6 minutes to be on stage, in pairs or threes, but never alone. We have to write skits where we are visiting another sister or maybe a non-believer. Sometimes the play takes place at their pretend kitchen table, and sometimes we're in their pretend living room, but in real life we're just in folding chairs sitting on the Kingdom Hall stage. The first time I have to give my talk, I ask if I can write it myself without anyone helping. There are horses and cows in my story, even though the main point is supposed to be the story of the resurrection. Say, for instance, I write, "We have a cow and a horse that we love. Is the death the end of life for those animals?" When my mother reads those lines, she shakes her head. "You're getting away from the topic," she says. "You have to take the animals out of it. Get right to the point. Start with people." I don't know what I am supposed to do with the fabulous, more interesting part of my story, where the horses and cows start speaking to me and to each other. How, even though they are old and won't live much longer, they aren't afraid. "You only have 6 minutes," my mother says, "and no, you can't get up and walk across the stage to make your point. Your talk has to be given sitting down." So I start again, rewriting. "Good afternoon, sister. I'm here to bring you some good news today. Did you know God's word is absolute?" If we turn to John chapter 5, verses 28 and 29, promising myself there'll come a time when I can use the rest of my story and stand when I tell it and give myself and my horses and my cows a whole lot more time than 6 minutes. First book. There are 7 of them, haikus mostly, but rhyming ones too. Not enough for a real book until I cut each page into a small square, staple the squares together, write one poem on each page. Butterflies by Jacqueline Woodson on the front. The Butterfly Book. It's complete now. Okay, we're going to start there. Stop there. So that's kind of where she started writing. Now, I'm going to finish this book for you next week, and you're going to continue listening to it. We're going to also add some other books to next week, but we will be finishing this. Look, that's all we've got left, and then you can take an AR test, and I know some of you are needing a lot of points, and I think this is, I don't know, I haven't been able to look because they changed the way AR looks, but I think this is worth quite a few points, so this would be a good one for you to take an AR test on if you've been listening with us all along, okay? See you guys tomorrow.